We begin this journey with a question. Have you ever truly faced yourself? Not the self that others see, but the one that hides behind your thoughts, your fears, and your desires. I ask because this is where we must start. The confrontation with the duality that resides in all of us. The dance of good and evil that shapes every decision, every step, every breath. I remember my first encounter with this inner battlefield. It wasn't in a temple, or a retreat, or under the guidance of a spiritual master. It was in the quiet stillness of my room, staring into the void of my own existence. You've been there, haven't you? Those nights when sleep escapes you, and the weight of your life presses so heavily on your chest that you feel as if you might crumble under its pressure. That's where the journey began. I had to ask myself, what is good? What is evil? Are they forces outside of us? Or are they simply the reflection of our inner chaos? You might wonder the same. Let me tell you, the answer is not what you think. It's not a clear line, not a dichotomy where one can neatly separate light from darkness. No, good and evil are intertwined, like the roots of an ancient tree, feeding off the same soil of human experience. As I stepped deeper into this understanding, I began to notice something profound. Good and evil are not static. They are dynamic. They shift and change depending on our choices, our awareness, our intentions. Have you ever done something with the best of intentions, only to realize later that it caused harm? Or perhaps acted out of selfishness and found that it brought unexpected kindness into the world? Why does this happen? Because good and evil are not opposites. They are partners in a cosmic dance. I found myself drawn to explore this further. Meditation became my refuge, but it wasn't the peaceful escape you might imagine. It was war. The silence was deafening, the stillness suffocating. My thoughts screamed louder than any external noise. You know what I mean, don't you? When you try to sit still, your mind becomes a torrent of regrets, fears, dreams, and doubts. This is the moment where most people stop. But this is exactly where you need to begin. Why? Because that chaos is the map to your inner world. You have to navigate it if you want to find the truth. One night, as I sat in meditation, I felt an overwhelming presence. A force that felt both terrifying and comforting. It wasn't external, it was within me. It was the embodiment of my anger, my greed, my fear, but it was also my compassion, my courage, my love. And then I realized, this is me, all of it, the good and the evil, the light and the dark. It's you too, isn't it? Think about it. How often do you deny parts of yourself because they don't fit the image you want to project to the world? What would happen if you embraced those parts instead? Could it be that the very things you fear about yourself are the keys to your liberation? From that night onward, I stopped running. I invited my shadow to sit with me. I asked it questions, listened to its stories, and in doing so, I discovered something extraordinary. My shadow wasn't my enemy, it was my teacher. And here's the paradox. The more I embraced my shadow, the more light I found within myself. Isn't that strange? The very act of confronting my darkness made me more compassionate, more forgiving, more alive. It was as if the universe was saying, only by walking through the fire can you find the gold. You might be thinking, this sounds abstract. The sacred alchemy of pain and purpose. Pain is a strange companion, isn't it? It arrives uninvited, lingers longer than we wish, and leaves scars that tell stories we often wish we could forget. But have you ever considered that pain might not be your enemy? What if pain, in its raw and relentless way, is trying to teach you something? What if it's the very key to your transformation? Let me share a moment with you. A moment where I came face to face with this question. I was at the lowest point in my life, a place where the world seemed devoid of color, joy, or meaning. You've been there too, haven't you? That space where even breathing feels like a burden, where hope is a distant memory. It was in this abyss that I asked myself, why? Why do we suffer? Why does life hurt so much? The answer didn't come easily. It didn't come in a flash of light or a divine revelation. It came slowly, like the first rays of dawn after a long, cold night. And the answer was this: pain is not a punishment, it is a process. Think about it. When a seed is buried in the soil, it might feel like the end, a cold, dark, suffocating end. But that burial is not its death, it is its beginning. The soil, the darkness, the weight, they are all necessary for the seed to grow, to transform, to break open and reach for the light. Could it be that your pain is doing the same for you? I began to see my pain not as a curse, but as a kind of sacred alchemy. It was breaking me open, forcing me to confront the parts of myself I had buried for too long. The grief, the anger, the shame, they were not obstacles to my growth. They were the catalysts. And then I realized something even more profound. Pain and purpose are not separate. They are two sides of the same coin. Have you noticed this in your life? How the greatest challenges often lead to the greatest transformations. How the moments that broke you also built you. It's as if the universe is whispering, this is not the end, this is your becoming. But here's the thing. Transformation is not passive. It requires your active participation. You must choose to engage with your pain, to listen to it, to learn from it. This is not easy. It is, in fact, the hardest thing you will ever do. But it is also the most rewarding. Let me ask you, what would happen if you stopped running from your pain and started running toward it? What if you saw your struggles not as barriers, but as bridges? What if you believed, truly believed, that every wound carries within it the seed of wisdom? When I began to embrace this perspective, my life changed. I stopped seeing myself as a victim and started seeing myself as a student. Every hardship became a lesson, every loss a teacher. I started asking new questions. Not, why is this happening to me? But what is this trying to teach me? Not how can I escape this, but how can I grow through this? Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Think about a time when you faced something you thought you couldn't survive, and yet, here you are. You survived. You grew. What did that experience teach you? What strength did it reveal in you that you didn't know you had? Pain, when embraced, has a way of carving out space within us, a space that can be filled with wisdom, compassion, and purpose. But only if we let it. Only if we surrender to the process. There's a powerful story from ancient philosophy that speaks to this truth. It's about a sculptor who was asked how he created such lifelike statues. He replied, "I see the angel in the marble and carve until I set it free." Isn't that what life is doing to us? Carving away all that is not us, all that is false, until only the truth remains? But here's the paradox. The sculptor's chisel is pain. It is the losses we endure, the failures we face, the heartbreaks we suffer. And yet, without that chisel, we remain unformed, unfinished. Can you see now why pain is not your enemy, but your ally? As I walked further along this path, I discovered another truth. Pain connects us. It reminds us that we are not alone. Every person you meet is carrying their own hidden sorrows, their own battles. And when we recognize this, when we see the humanity in each other, something beautiful happens. We become kinder, gentler, more compassionate. Think about it. How many times have you found strength in someone else's story of struggle? How many times has your own vulnerability inspired someone else? This is the alchemy of pain and purpose. Your pain is not just for you, it is for the world. Your story, your journey, your transformation, it has the power to heal not just yourself, but others. So I ask you, what will you do with your pain? Will you let it defeat you, or will you let it define you? Will you let it close you off, or will you let it open you up? Will you see it as a burden, or will you see it as a gift? This is the choice we all face. And it is not a choice we make once, but every single day. Every time we wake up, every time we face a new challenge, every time we fall and have to decide whether to get back up. And here's the secret. Every time you choose to rise, you are not just lifting yourself. You are lifting everyone around you. Your courage becomes a light in the darkness, a beacon of hope for those who are still lost. As I leave you with this part of the journey, I want to ask you one final question. If you could transform your pain into something beautiful, something meaningful, what would it be? Take a moment to think about this. Let it sink in. The infinite power of selfless love. What is love, truly? Is it the fleeting spark of romance, the comfort of a warm embrace, the sacrifice of a parent, or the quiet acts of kindness that often go unnoticed? You've felt it, haven't you? That pull toward another being, that instinct to care, to protect, to give. But have you ever wondered, what is the source of love? And more importantly, what is its ultimate purpose? Let me start by telling you something unexpected. Love is not about you. It never was. This realization is both humbling and liberating. Think about it. When you love someone, when you truly, selflessly love them, it's not about what you can gain. It's about what you can give. And in that giving, something extraordinary happens. You expand. Your soul grows. You touch the infinite. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's begin where all love begins, with the self. We're often told that we must love ourselves before we can love others. But what does self-love really mean? Is it pampering yourself, affirming your worth, or shielding yourself from harm? In part, yes. But self-love goes deeper. It's about accepting yourself completely. The good, the bad, the beautiful, and the broken. It's about standing naked before the mirror of your soul and saying, "This is me." And that's enough. Can you do that? Can you truly embrace yourself without judgment, without conditions? If not, ask yourself why. What stories have you told yourself about your worth? What lies have you believed about who you are? And most importantly, what would it take for you to let those stories go? When I began to practice self-love, I realized something profound. The parts of myself I had rejected were the very parts that needed the most compassion. My fears, my insecurities, my flaws, they weren't weaknesses. They were wounds. And like all wounds, they needed care to heal. Could it be that the same is true for you? As I learned to love myself, something beautiful began to happen. My capacity to love others grew. It was as if the love I gave to myself overflowed, spilling out into the world. And that's when I discovered the truth about love. It is infinite. The more you give, the more you have to give. It's like a flame that grows stronger with every candle it lights. But self-love is only the beginning. The real journey lies in loving others. Not just the people who are easy to love, but those who are not. Can you love the person who has hurt you? The stranger who ignores you? The enemy who opposes you? This is the true test of love. Not how much you feel, but how much you give, even when it's hard. Let me share a story with you. There was a time in my life when someone betrayed me deeply. The pain was unbearable, the anger consuming. I wanted to retaliate, to make them feel what I felt. But then a question arose in my mind. What would love do? It was a question that stopped me in my tracks. What would love do? Would it seek revenge, or would it seek understanding? Would it hold on to the pain, or would it let go? The answer was clear. And so, with trembling hands and a heavy heart, I forgave. Not for their sake, but for mine. Because forgiveness is not about condoning the harm done to you. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of your own anger. Have you ever forgiven someone who didn't deserve it? If not, I invite you to try. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. As I continued on this path, I began to see the world through new eyes. I saw the humanity in every face, the divinity in every soul. I realized that every act of kindness, no matter how small, is a ripple in the vast ocean of love. And every ripple matters. Your love matters. So I ask you, who in your life needs your love right now? Who needs your forgiveness, your compassion, your understanding? And what's stopping you from giving it? There is a secret about love that few people know. Love is not a feeling, it is an action. It is a choice. Every day, every moment, you have the choice to love or not to love. And every time you choose love, you align yourself with the most powerful force in the universe. This force is what connects us all. It's what makes us human. It's what gives our lives meaning. And when you tap into it, when you let it flow through you, you become unstoppable. You become a force for good in a world that so desperately needs it. But love is not without sacrifice. To love deeply is to risk pain. To open your heart is to risk breaking it. But here's the paradox. The more your heart breaks, the more it opens. And the more it opens, the more love it can hold. This is the infinite power of selfless love. It transforms pain into beauty, wounds into wisdom, and isolation into connection. It is the force that turns strangers into friends, enemies into allies, and fear into courage. So, as we come to the end of this journey, let me leave you with one final question. If love is the answer, what is the question? Take your time with this one. Let it sink in. And when you're ready, go out into the world and love with everything you have. Because the world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more love. Your love. And that, my friend, is how we find enlightenment, not by escaping the world, but by embracing it. Not by avoiding the darkness, but by lighting it up with the infinite power of love.